Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and very warm welcome to this live session. Today, it's a masterclass session, and we're on the day 4 of our Skills Week on the theme Building a Skills First Organization in partnership with Skillsoft. I'm Jerry from the People Matters team, and it's a delight to welcome you all today. So, throughout this week, we've been helping companies like yours demystify the transformation that's really underway and helping articulate best practices. And so, in keeping with that, we looked at themes around technology, we looked at themes around human connect. Today, we'll be diving a little bit deeper and thinking about how do you build future ready learning roadmaps. Our theme is around the strategy, execution, and impact. So this is a 60-minute masterclass that will help you with frameworks for you to think about your own future readiness in your learning roadmaps. So to present to us today, we have two experts. I'd like to welcome Sucheta Mishra Goel, who is the principal for professional services consulting at Skillsoft. And Sucheta brings over 20 years of professional experience across IT and ITES, BFSI, leadership consulting, and organizational development consulting. And she's worked across multiple organizations. And she's not just an SME expert, but also a people leader and has great experience in managing projects and clients. Glad to have you with us, Suchita. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jerry. Glad to be here.
Wonderful. We also have with us Ankur Gupta, who's the Vice President for Marketing at Skillsoft. Ankur is an accomplished senior marketing professional with over 2 decades of industry experience in strategic planning, field marketing, brand management, business development, and operations. We're very excited to have you, Ankur.
Thank you, Jerry. And it's glad to be here as well and co hosting this session with Sucheta, who's an expert. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. We look forward to the wonderful session that you've designed for us. So before I hand it over to Ankur and Suchita, I wanted to announce that feel free to use the chat section at any time during this session to post your thoughts, comments, and reflections. Since this is a masterclass, we'd like to keep it as interactive as possible. So it'll be great to hear your challenges. And I'll welcome our speakers also to take up these questions as time allows. And we also have some poll questions designed to make this interactive. So I'd invite you also to participate in those polls. All right. Okay, great. Over to you, Ankur. Thank you.
no, thank you, Jerry. And I know we had having running an exciting week, which really started and touched various aspects from a skilling perspective, right? We talked about how human and AI is kind of coexisting or will coexist and what need to do about it. And there are a lot of industry leaders who shared their not just the current state but the vision on day one. We obviously saw things around how this learning is really rebooting and what kind of things we have to do to get it very performance focused. And I will ask a lot of people who have attending this masterclass. If you have not attended, I'm sure many of you must have attended some of the earlier sessions. Yesterday, the session was on coaching, that how coaching in the new avatar is really taking on and helping around leadership development, right? So today we try to build up more from what we have learned till now and kind of go deeper, as Jerry did mention about it, that we will kind of focus on what kind of strategies, what how you really execute, what kind of impact you can look at. So if I can get the slides, possibly, that will be great. Yeah, thank you, team. So I will want to just start really with what we want to cover today, right? Over the next hour and so, we want to cover a little bit of giving you a background of what is happening in this world today. What kind of disruption we are seeing, and it's very focused on generative AI, because I was hearing in yesterday's panel discussion that how generative AI is almost like becoming a penicillin, right? And what it did to a variety of diseases. So generative AI is doing something similar. Obviously, we have to see what it does, and it is probably not a fad kind of thing, and people have started realizing it, but it is in the early avatars. We then start really looking at that how it impacts today's businesses, how it start impacting the CEOs, the HRs and everybody, like L&D leaders and all of you who are attending it, right? And then we go deeper into understanding what does a skill landscape look like, what are the strategy for skilling, and then what kind of how you really take this disruption and create an impact around it within your organizations. So coming to, I'm sure this is not something very new for you guys. This is the probably a reality. This is the reality of what our current business environment looks like, right? We are living in a world full of disruption, or I would say hyper disruption, because I would say in 4, 5, 7 years back, it has started with a lot of digital technologies, and then suddenly COVID came in, which changed a lot of ways of how we work, and remote working or hybrid working start coming in, which is a reality in a lot of organizations today. Uh, Economic uncertainty has been constantly hovering around us, and we started seeing leadership gaps, right? Because you have to live in a very uncertain environment with remote working, people working all around. And over the last 2 years or so, we have started seeing when the generative AI started impacting everybody's life, right? And what you have to do around it. So what we have started really seeing is that generative AI has exploded, especially with the launch of ChatGPT, I would say, and the variety of applications post that, and it is coming in the hands of the masses, right? Um, uh, I know that there's a lot of studies, and if I remember correctly, what we are really seeing is that 60% of the jobs, especially in the advanced economies, right, the developed countries, will get replaced, right, will get impacted in certain shape and form through AI. And if you really look at, yes, in economies like India, I think that may be slightly lesser, but we have to poise this challenge, and we have to make sure that we do sufficient skilling, reskilling, to hinder this progress, right? And making sure that we take this opportunity, this disruption into an opportunity. Now, coming back to our first poll question, and believe me, we can make this, guys, interactive. So I will appreciate that people start, asking questions, posting it, putting their observations as Jerry did highlight it. But this is our first question, that has generative AI technology disrupted or disrupting roles and influence in your organizations and your talent strategy? So we will give a minute to you to go to menti.com and put this code. And I'm sure we have started seeing. Sucheta, what do you think? What is happening?
No, absolutely, Ankur. I think you summarized it beautifully well. And across the various sessions that some folks may have attended, and what we have seen the industry leaders talk through, we are bang on. I mean, today, honestly, AI, Gen AI, whatever it is, it's more of a fad, like you said. People like to talk about it, but merely just talking about AI does not make me an AI expert, and therefore, to stay relevant and to ensure that I'm not joining the bandwagon where there are job losses happening because technology is displacing jobs. I don't want to join that bandwagon because I may have been reluctant as an individual, as an organization, and may not have provided that avenue, to my people to really come forth, reskill or upskill themselves. So that is where I think at least the fear of missing out should help people cope up or to catch up. Some may like to call it a race that they don't want to participate. It's unethical. It could be disruptive. It may have other vulnerability
Yeah,
aspects. But we'll come to that in a bit. But
yeah.
the
No, I
statistics.
think.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, I was very interestingly seeing the stats coming in. Not at all, and not sure is zero, right? So yes, it has started impacting a lot of people and a lot of talent strategy if we really start
Hmm.
thinking about, and
Yeah.
people. But what it is, how much it is something which we will explore a little bit more in this session as well.
Sure.
Uh, so are we seeing more responses coming in, or we can move further? But it clearly shows that a lot of folks have started really looking at
Hmm.
some sort of impact. And when I look at some sort of impact, uh, you know We have just taken this example of chat gpt. Think about it, just a chat gpt, and there are dali, there are mid
Yeah.
journey, there are, and now soras. And I was seeing some video yesterday of a Chinese company who has done something much better than even sora, right? So yes, there are a lot of big giants who are really focusing on it, but looking at just chat gpt right now, right? And taking up that it is touching everybody. It is touching from your c suite or a senior leader to all the departmental heads, to the CIOs, to the CTOs, to developers, right? And there is a little bit more research we will show later in the session. But everybody is getting touched here, and
Absolutely.
this is what we've started seeing, that this is not happening in some industries, right? While the impact in some industries is more versus less, and people are finding use cases for each of them, but in some industries it is a lot more, especially where we can automate. And now it is it is not just a bot, right, where you have a set of responses coming in which
Mhm.
sometimes get logically created, but now it is more humanized. And that is really taking the low level kind of jobs. And I'm sure those jobs which require repetitive steps are taking a lot more as compared to some of the other industries. But it is all across. And this is a beautiful quote came from IDC in the last year's report, that the implementation of skills development program powered by Gen AI and automation will enable organization to drive $1 trillion in productivity, right? Which makes it like that, oh, we have to not just have a FOMO effect, but we have to really capitalize on these AI technologies, because if you are not really taking care of this, they will come and eat you. So it becomes very, very important for us to embrace that and see that what kind of things, because I need to be more productive now. Obviously there's a lot of debate, oh, these jobs will go away, but then you will become a lot more productive. Do you think that a calculator or an Excel sheet have taken jobs? I think the not really. I think you become more and more productive, and that's where we are seeing is that how it will impact. But it will be very, very personalized. It will be very use case driven. It is depends on that industry and things like that. And as you kind of go really further into it, and these are again some of the research reports which we have seen from McKinsey, what McKinsey is saying, what Accenture is saying, right? That there are very basic use cases, whether it's customer service, whether it's marketing from a content creation perspective. Most of the time, yes, I used to write my own articles. Now it's a chat GPT. We have to just make sure that we do the right prompts and we start building up the base level draft content, right? And it is a conversation, because you have to learn it. It's not the same old Google saying that, oh, it is not a search, right? It is a conversation which you do, just like you do with a person to explore more. I think that's what has started happening. And there is a lot of expectation which the industry is really having. And yes, marketing and media, and marketing is an industry, or a department where I've spent most of my career. Is that and we started already using it. 2022, if you look at the outbound marketing messages, 2% going to 30% next year. And it is just next year, right? And we are done with half year already this year, right? So these are the Gartner prediction, saying the 30%. And I'm sure this will even go further up. And so you have to start really looking, and there's a lot of use cases. And I was zoomed with the second one, which says that, and this was so close and related to what I was watching yesterday on on this whole new tools on videos and soras and all of that, that by 2030 blockbuster film will be released with 90% generated by AI. Really? I was thinking what will happen to, obviously, what the heroes and actors and directors and whatnot, right? And which was zero. So there is lot of things which are coming in which will make it very productive, which will make it very fast. And maybe we want to generate a movie with me myself being a hero of that, right? With all the scenes which because it is entertainment business, right? So we've started seeing a lot of that fun stuff happening, but I think there is some serious stuff happening as well. And there are very specific cases coming. And this is again from the Gartner report, which I kind of pulled in. As you can see, pharmaceutical from a drug design perspective or synthetic data perspective, right? Uh, look at the usage of synthetic data across architecture, energy, automobile, healthcare, whatnot. So there are very, very specific set of use cases which are kind of coming in terms of chip design, right? In a and that is such a big area now. How much you can automate and use generative AI for doing this? This will surely create a lot of productivity outputs, right, for the organizations. And if you are not an organization which is using it correctly, obviously your competitors are. So better start kind of using it. uh, I also want to announce that over the last month or so, People Matters and Skillsoft did a dipstick study to understand what's happening in this area of generative AI and its emergence on workforce transformation. And this is just for India, right? While some of the data which you have seen was global, and when a global data is there, I'm sure there is a huge percentage of that get influenced by India. But this is a very Indian specific report, and I believe this should be released sometime next week. So most of you will get a kind of a copy of that. But I pulled some of the while it is still in the production, but I did pulled some of it and don't want to steal the thunder of this report, which is decently comprehensive report. But as you can see that while there is a portion of people or organizations which are uninformed, but there is a lot of work which is happening on the basic knowledge side, right? And across, you can see between, on the left side you see 0 to 25% employees to 25 or 26 to 50, and more so, you can see that the basic knowledge is getting into everybody's hand almost, right? And a lot of organizations are really doing that. But when it comes to competency or high proficiency, I think that's where you can see that a very small percentage. A lot of organizations are right now experimenting, looking at few roles and trying to see how it is becoming productive. But it will catch up and it will start making it to larger sense. Suchita, what you are seeing, you talk to so many of our customers.
Hmm.
What you are seeing that why this adoption is like on a very small level, and what do you see, what your CHROs, CLOs are saying?
Sure, I think that's a great question, Ankur. And coincidentally, that's also a question that has popped up in the chat,
Okay.
where, yeah. So, one, I think, is the noise that we are hearing from the market, and why is there a gap today? I think some part of it we touched in the initial part of a narrative today, where I think there's a lot of, AI and the implications related fear that people are operating with. That's the guiding force for them to either go ahead with the strategy or to hold themselves back and observe the others in the game. And based on how others are doing or faring in that race, and what are the learnings that others have been able to gather, that is one reason why there's a slowness, I would say. It's really not, it's a slowdown. If you look at the numbers right in front of us, it's actually not everyone is wanting to start everything at a time. And like I said, even on the panel we heard yesterday, there was a diverse view. Somebody felt that AI could really change things for us. It's like enabling things better. There was a human element that said no, that cannot be
Yeah.
superseded. So the whole coexistence bit, itself, I think that is somewhere still being debated in the senior leaders minds. So the right set of audience that should be the consumers of this content today. So I'm going to divert my and your attention, Ankur, to the question on the chat, where I think somebody has popped up something very interesting, and that's definitely coming up in the masterclass. Where should we start, and what is the best learning process to start Gen AI in learning? So we are aware that's a part of our delivery today, but I'll let you decide if you
Yeah.
want to take that up right now, or should we
No,
park it.
I think you should cover it in details when you're covering later in the masterclass. But very good
Okay.
question, because I think that is the intention
Mm-hmm.
of talking about it. That it's any sort of upskilling, reskilling, and today I think Gen
Mm-hmm.
AI is one of them, as we kind of talked
Yep.
about. So, what is the journey which you should be taking for your own department from a learning perspective? But it has two bigger use cases as well. One is, okay, how Gen AI is getting used in your department. And this brings me to my next slide. If you really look at,
Mm.
this is again coming from the same report, and you will get a lot more details about this report next week. But look at information technology, IT 53%, human resource and talent management 46%, right? It is beyond marketing. I was thinking maybe marketing is using more, lot more, but I was surprised to see these numbers saying that actually HR and talent management is using Gen AI to a large extent as of now. Now, so that is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it, that how you are enabling your organizations, as we have seen in the last chart, that a small portion of, obviously a large portion have started going through a base knowledge, but then small portion is started looking at those roles in maybe a few departments where they are going in terms of integrating AI a lot more in their work, right? And that will have to keep on increasing, and that will happen with newer products coming in, better use cases, because today the best use case for even a video production is 2 minutes, right? They can't produce more than a 2 minute video, or a Sora can create a 1 minute video, right? In that way. But then it has to really start, because and each prompt, which means that you have to write each sentence, and that's where somehow the prompt engineer role is becoming on the top, right? So more and more things will start really happening as more and more use cases, and I think the way it might work out is that you have a base level foundation happening for all these people, or across, everybody has to go through, but then you have a specific skilling programs happening on AI or Gen AI. And when I sometimes say AI and Gen AI, they are interchangeably, but because the new version of AI is Gen AI, what we are really talking about, and all these applications are getting developed. That's where it will be very specific, that, oh, what does AI means for HR or marketing or operations? And sometimes I see even here, which is the lowest adoption, at least in the research report, saying legal and compliance, right, or procurement. Now there are obviously use cases which can be developed in terms of how you can do better procurement or supply chain through AI. So there is a lot of that application layer is kind of coming in, which will start benefiting a lot of organizations, I would say. Anything to add on this? What you're seeing, data here, Suchita?
No, I think this is good insight, Ankur. I think, and quite true. Like I said, from the noise that we are hearing and from the asks that come our way, when we craft solutions for our customers, we help them, craft a path of AI. One, it's clear in everyone's head, it's not going to happen overnight. It'll take some time, and the readiness for somebody to adopt and to be accommodating that kind of a timeline for of investment. It's various things that contribute to that success. So what I was just going to say is, we will cover in detail about the best learning process to start with, and how Gen AI in learning is going to be a big deal. But these statistics are also divisional and quite helpful for everyone attending this masterclass and even later that consumes this content.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah,
No,
I'll
thank
pause
you.
at that.
Yeah. So that brings to our poll number 2. And this poll is about, do you have a workforce that with relevant skills that you need, right? And when we really say relevant skills, Gen AI skills are there, or AI skills are there, but I think it is a slightly broader question, because what it is happening is that we have talked about the disruption, and I know we have talked a lot more about Gen AI right now, over the last 10 minutes, but then there are a lot of other things which have started happening. We have started, we first of all, the leadership has gone to all levels, right? And everybody is a leader, right? We expect everybody to behave like a leader, right? Um, Now you have to start leading yourself, you have to start leading people, and then you have to start leading business impacts, right? How will you do that? What kind of skills or micro skills you are really requiring? Because gone were the days, probably 10-15 years back, I have done those managerial trainings or leadership training for that sake, and there were like 32 hours of every module which you have to go through, and everybody goes to the same, right? Every departmental head went to the same of 32 hours. Now, obviously, a lot of things was, oh, do I really need this? Versus a lot of things, oh, I already know because I all did that in my MBA class. And something were more interesting, right? But it was everybody come on the same page. Today, we don't live in that world. We live in a world where for different roles, you require very different set of skills. You might be a manager or a director, but depending on the department, depending on the industry, depending on your maturity, right? A lot of the skills which are required, or I would say micro skills, or which you require, are very, very specific. And what I know already, I should not be spending time and learning something which I already know. Yeah, it can be a refresher on that way. But so the personalization or hyper personalization of those skills, trainings, understanding of where I am, so benchmarking becomes very, very important. And that's how you really get that experience. You hook somebody to that learning, right? And really make it impact. And on the other side, you have to start really looking at uh, how it impacts. So, oh, sorry, we were looking at the poll right now, and people say yes. Good to see a lot of people have the workforce which they need. People say no, absolutely, okay, smaller one, but partially, and that's where people know, and I'm sure there's a lot of L&D and HR leaders here. They are aware that there is a lot of newer skills which are coming in. There is a uh, set of evolving roles. And if you really go back to the slide, please. Yeah. So I think that is surely a fundamental question, because if you really start looking at the top skills, and I know they are very small in size here, but these are the top 25, top 10 skills in 2025, and this from the World Economic Forum. Now you are really looking at analytical thinking and innovation. You're looking at active learning, complex problem solving, critical thinking. These are the top skills. I know prompt engineer is a top role, or AI data scientist is a top roles, but a lot of these skills are becoming important across your workforce, right? And unfortunately, a lot of these skills are not there currently, or they have
Hmm.
not been taught. I know, especially in a country like India, where everything is all about subjects and marks, a lot of these skills were not being taught, and believe me, and that is what really is required, and what businesses are really requiring, because the whole organizations are going through a lot of change, whether it's AI, big data, cloud. There is so much of it. There is what we are seeing is there is a large portion of core skills which is getting disrupted. Look at even my role when I started my journey after MBA in marketing. For the first 10 years, Philip Kotler, I'm not sure, I know there's a lot of HR people, but some must have done marketing, MBA as well. So Philip Kotler marketing rules, all 4 P's, 7 P's, everything worked perfectly fine, right, for the first 10 years. And when we started seeing Mark Tech start coming in, right? And today we are living in a world where you can't run marketing. So the role of CMO has become CMTO, which is a chief marketing technology officer, or CTMO, whatever, chief technology marketing officer, right? That's where, because you have to have the right marketing stack. Even whether you are a B2B, whether you're B2C, obviously in a B2C, the stack is a lot more because you only play with data, right? And suddenly in the last, I think, 10, 12 years, the number of technologies which are supporting marketing has come from 150, I was looking at the map, I think, a couple of weeks back, to 14,000. Can you believe? From 150 companies which were supporting the different set of apps, today we have 14,000 different apps, and that there is a martech map which comes in. Now the same thing happens in HR as well, but it happens in lot of other areas, right? It happens in variety of roles which you are supporting, which are growing. So it becomes very important for understanding and realizing that, what kind of roles or what kind of skills are required with what level of people. and
Hmm.
and I'm sure there's tons of people who are doing that already. But if you start really looking at, coming back to, again, McKinsey as company's latest priority survey of CEOs, look at obviously generative AI, no doubt about it, we have talked about it. Leveraging generative AI across all business functions and scaling up, right? That is the priority. But then really start looking at how technology is fundamentally rewiring how you really use digital, how you look at creating differentiators, right? These are all yellow, which I've kind of highlighted, are people dependent, right? Appreciating the critical role of middle management, right?
Yeah.
The first time leaders or the middle management leaders are such an important
Yep.
focus areas, because these are the people who execute, right? We
Mm-hmm.
are talking about, oh, strategy, you create a strategy, but when you start really going to the execution portion of it, everybody has to be fully upskilled and to the micro skill which they are really looking at and engaged and productive, right? So that's where we are started looking at from a CEO perspective. But when you come to HR, CHROs, right? I think there was during the COVID time and post that, suddenly that trust started becoming a challenge, right? And that whole relationship between an employee and an employer has been unsettling, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is a big trend which we are seeing, and you know it is clearly coming in the survey as well. Uh, Skill shortage, and this skill shortage is not just, oh, one particular technology skill shortage, right? This is across leadership, this is across how you manage skills. Even when you look at Gen AI, right? In Gen AI, our one is understanding of Gen AI, but understanding of how I should use, how ethically I should use, and things like that, right? Because the expectation from that manager has gone drastically up, right? Especially in this remote or hybrid workforce. A manager has to be very, very empathetic. Maybe 5, 10 years back, a manager has to get this work done. But today, he has to be empathetic. He has to be personal. He has to be like a role model. He has to manage employees, not employees' work, but employee as a whole, right? So I think those are the things which have started coming in. So you have to make sure that that employee understands, and then he is leading. And when people are using a lot of Gen AI, the leaders has to also understand that I am leading a team which is enabled with Gen AI, right? So I should understand all of that better as well. So all that has started happening. I know technology is a continuous way where CHROs are spending and focusing a lot more on this technology innovations. Just like in marketing, I think it has happened, and now HR. Sometimes it creates a clutter as well. So you have to get the right stacks at the right place to get the building done, and then I think the pressure on the operational efficiencies, right? Because ultimately, every business leader is asking how you are making it performance driven. From a culture perspective to the execution, and what is the impact you can show out. So again, the numbers that you see on the bottom shows up that really HR technology is where the investment is going, and these numbers are more of the priorities from a budget perspective. L&D has been one of them, which is these are a lot more related to what kind of goals or challenges which they are really seeing. I know rewards has become another important area. You have to make sure that you reward people, and reward sometimes is not just money, but it is a lot more things beyond it. And I would
Yep.
say career progression is a big reward, right? How you are
Mm-hmm.
taking care of that employee, how you are making sure that that person is growing, right? And for growth, you have to get new skills. Now again, it becomes more of a talent management area, right? So those are the things. But your observations on this, Sucheta, uh, between a
Mm-hmm.
CHRO and CSO.
No, first it's very heartening to see that some investment numbers have been plugged against each of the critical pillars, I would say. And like you said, pandemic may have really kind of up and increased the pace of digitalization. Now what that has done really is not displaced people from their jobs, but really has we are reimagining work today, actually, thanks to that whole disruption. And now the investments is really heartening to see. And why I say that is, usually when the whole cost cutting agenda or a phase comes in, there's a freeze that needs to be put. These are typically the elements that take the
Yeah,
limelight from a freeze. And now if we are saying that there is a sacrosanct percentage of investment that needs to happen, now the point is, the challenge for the CHROs will be to live up to this commitment.
right.
The deeper and the more strategically they are driven to it, and they ensure that this is adhered to. This is a great story to tell. So 2024 and 25 should see things changing and speeding up a little differently. So the first chart, the first poll numbers would look different when we do a masterclass next time, sometime. And Ankur, also a very interesting question. So do you think Gen AI is generating very basic add-ons at the moment? Should we wait for more advanced innovations? I already have a thought to respond to it, but let me know if you
No,
want
no.
to go first.
No, no, please go. Please go.
Okay, so this I think will tie back to some of the earlier slides that Ankur you presented, and some of the studies, where we were looking at what are those differentiation factors for organizations. How are we consuming or thinking of even envisioning an enterprise-wide solution? So there, I mean, if today in everyone's mind Chat GPT is the definition of Gen AI, then the first part of the question is valid. Therefore,
Yeah.
I think some basic add-ons are coming about, because in everyone's mind, Gen AI is perhaps Chat GPT, but the reality is that there's far more. And I think, Ankur, like you started saying about it, right? The elements, there's something about the leadership style. There's a leadership development element that's critical to drive this kind of a workforce. There's a generational divide in the workforce today. To balance it, like Ankur, you said, when I went to school and when I consumed training, 32 hours is what was a mandate for me to evolve as a leader. Today that may not be the case.
Yeah.
But I where I'm driving, what the point I'm driving home over here is that is it really for us to wait for advanced innovations, or are we not tapping into the good level of innovations that and solutions that exist in the market, either because of lack of awareness or because of some kind of inhibition, adoption challenges, some vulnerability issues? There could be so many things on the mind. And I have a classic example to share. When we talk about, I think, KZ, or conversational
Yeah.
AI simulator, we heard that in the last 3-4 days as well. So we are saying now we are relooking at how the coaching experience is transforming. So that
Agree.
is a classic example of AI, Gen AI's, unmatched evidence in the markets, and that is no innovation we need to wait for. It's already existing. The second level
Yeah.
is customization of that. So my instant response to this question is, it's about us adopting, the existing solutions. Perhaps that awareness needs to be deepened. Or somewhere there's a gap between what exists and what I know exists. So I'll pause at that and seek your
Yeah.
inputs on the same question, Uncle.
Sure.
What do you
Sure.
think?
No, and you have to look at Gen AI in two different perspectives, right? One is a whole infrastructure layer, right, which is the whole LLM models and how this chat, whether Chat GPT is one of the application, right? It
Hmm.
is the GPT-4, right? You're really talking about 3.5 for 4 or whatever that evolution has happened, right? And every of these top 5 or 4 people are building of their own, right? And suddenly Meta comes and make it free for everybody, right? So you are so there is one on the infrastructure side, and whatever Gen AI is doing is not incremental, it is transformational, right? Because till today, or before this era of AI, while AI has been happening for a long time, right? And now suddenly when it is coming to the masses in their hands, it is very transformational in nature by itself, right? Because it has started replicating the brain, right? Ultimately, what you're doing with these models, or what these GPT engines are, that it is like a brain. You have created a brain. Now how smart you can make that brain, because instead of having neurons, right? I'm sorry, I'm not a biology major, but I know brain works on neurons, and those fire ups, and there is obviously results comes in, right? The similar thing is happening between that whole model of what I should be really producing, and every neuron is talking to other, and there is a logic coming in, and then there is an output coming in. That's a reason it is more humanized, right? It is not exactly somebody has typed these 5 answers, and that's where it is coming. So one is that infrastructure, but the second thing is more about what are the various applications. That's what a lot of people are working on today, right? How it get applied in variety of things, right? Variety of scenarios, and what problem it will solve, and what are the expected behavior, and what all you need, maybe the brain to power a little bit more. Think about it. When brain developed from a kid to you start doing calculus only when you are ready for it, right? You can't just do calculus in grade 3, right? Or you can't do trigonometry just in grade 3, right? You have to evolve to a grade 8 or 9, right? Sorry.
You can do a lot of coding today in the primary classes in
Yeah,
India, so that has
that's what
changed.
I'm saying. So
Yeah, yeah.
now you are limited. You were always
Hmm.
limited in that behavior. But
Yeah.
what has started happening is that when you have a power in your hand, right? Now a grade 3 or grade 6 kid can, and my daughter did that, right?
Yeah,
Start developing games, because
exactly.
there is something which is helping. Now
Hmm.
that is the same way we have to start looking at these tools, and start really utilizing and making us more and more productive. So the innovation is coming still from humans
Hmm.
using the power of what we have developed. And
Mhm.
how it is going further is again an innovation which people are doing. So again, not an area to, and I'm sorry, I'm not a Gen AI expert in that way, but what I am learning is that, it is evolving. And yes, it will take on, as I said, it will take on certain set of roles, and you have to be very, very careful as HR and L&D leaders, that what are these roles, what are these skills which are getting replaced in the next 5 years, because they are going even faster than that, right? And which areas we have to start using the human intelligence up there. So yes, you have to experiment. You need not have to wait. I would say you need have to, just like to add on what Chita you said, you have to start experimenting, because it is all about, once you start experimenting, and failing fast is the name of the game today. Okay, let's move further. Okay, now we come to poll number three. I'm sure people are liking and playing in the polls. So what do you prioritize more when evaluating talent and potential in your workforce? Now, this is coming out of, obviously we did talk about a lot of AI, Gen AI, and stuff like that. But what do you prioritize today? And you can see some of these results coming in, and that's where we go deeper into really understanding that what organizations are really looking at, right, and how we are changing. Okay, we have started seeing the results. Job experience, yes. Education qualification, should we stop going to college? What are these college doing?
My son will be happy to hear that, by the way.
I know, I know.
Okay, amazing.
No,
This
but
is
but
good.
but I'm hearing a lot of times. I think not that education qualification or these colleges will fade away, but what they're saying is that the importance of it, right?
Hmm.
College will be more of a place of community where you build networks, where you
Hmm.
have the buddies, where you do projects, where you do all
Social
of that.
learning.
Because you can't just do, all alone sitting in front of a computer everything, right? We are
Yep.
humans, right? We will behave that way.
Hmm.
But the results directly says that, yeah, certification, job experience, but then it is demonstrated skills, right? And
Yep.
those skills, but how will you identify those skills, right? What are those skills all about? And that's not easy game, right? I'm sure, Sujita, you deal with it day in and day out, working with a lot of CLOs and CHROs,
Hmm.
that creating up that whole map of taxonomy of skills, and it's not an easy thing to do.
Yep.
So why don't you take this and talk about a little bit of this, whether it's demonstrated skills or even building up the skills, and where we are really moving in this direction from an overall organizational perspective, how these are priorities. But
Sure.
clearly it says skills, demonstrated skills.
Absolutely. See, that's the level of awareness, and that's a great story, right? Last 5 years, maybe had we done a similar poll 5 years ago, you would have at least seen some number under the educational qualification sector segment. There's no way that you would not have seen, what you're seeing right now. So that is already a level of transformation that has happened. I would say, with all the disruptions that have taken place in the last 5 years. And from a skills perspective, I have, this is not a poll question, but it's a thought I'm seeding in everyone's mind. We are all talking about emerging technologies. We are talking about the world of Gen AI, and we don't know what else is lined up for us. The next question that perhaps is causing sleeplessness already in most of the CXOs today is, how long will this era last? So when I say Gen AI, and right now I want to go deep into it, I want to do an enterprise-wide skilling. But really, 5 years from now, will AI still be the biggest thing? So that's another worry factor that's also contributing to the whole factor of demonstrated skills is great, but I want readily available skills from the market that I can hire. The gap is, the reality is, in India market and even universally, that skill set is not readily available. And that is where we want all the CXOs to be far more patient and do that right set of investment, not just monetarily, but from a time perspective as well. It is a big investment. So bare minimum, I would say, if somebody has to begin, that is in a sense also responding to the earlier question that somebody asked, where should we begin this journey of Gen AI, right? Where do we begin? Where do we start? So the initial, the very elementary, rudimentary, fundamental phase itself is the activate phase, where I'm still knowing the basics of what this technology is. Then I'm going a little deeper, and then a little deeper, and then eventually I'll come to that transformation phase, where I could perhaps be that advisor or that advocate, and I can contribute to some small projects to begin with. Okay, and that needs time. So the statistics are really, very valid, and what you are displaying right now, Ankur, is the right thing. It's a mindset shift that's going to be have a critical role to play. And if you see, this is exactly what the Deloitte study shows to all of us. So we say 89% of the executives say skills are becoming important. Our poll said the exact same thing from the respondents, of that question. And then we are saying that there's also a plan. Those who are also responding to that whole skill value, they're also thinking and devising and talking of a plan in place. And then therefore, how will that plan get executed and how will the outcome get achieved? So people have begun that trajectory, they have treaded on that path. Here's where perhaps, I'm getting a little salesy here, but I'm in all honesty going to say that is what I hear when I talk to the CHROs or the CLOs. That is where some readily available solutions could be a pure plug and play here. You don't have to leave people to keep guessing. There'll be some element of customization, I do not deny it. When I kind of come to that segment in a bit, I'll talk through what could be the basic foundation structure vis-a-vis the levels of customization. But absolutely, 90% of the organizations are actively experimenting with this kind of an approach. That is a fact. And here's the success rate. So if you're saying 63% of the organizations who really have been those early adopters, they took the risk, I would say. One has to take that leap of faith, has to have an appetite for risk. Those who have prioritized skills over anything else, even a personal recommendation, by the way, if they have overlooked that and prioritized skills, they are already set out on the path to success. And that I think brings us to the next slide. Absolutely, that's the one I was looking for. So this is talking about an enterprise wide skills transformation, and this we are talking about achieving business success. Okay, that is everyone's ask on our conversations that we have. They say, by the way, Sucheta, can you now craft a solution very custom, very tailored, and very to my organization? What will make sense to my people? For example, I'm sounding preachy, but KZ is the conversational AI simulation. You won't believe, Ankur, today people come back and tell me, your example for a first time manager, by the way, is very apt. It's great. But you know what? Can you tweak the name a little bit? Can you make it a little Indian? Can you
Yes.
have Priya instead of Annie there? So, even that level of personalization has a lot of value, because I think
Right.
CHROs and CLOs are seeing what that Priya versus an Annie can do on that, personalization context to that case. That's what I meant. So these are the
No, I
different
know.
elements. Mhm,
Absolutely. And what we have seen is that while we have created so many scenarios, right, on the
mhm.
KZ platform, and people are really loving it when it's because it's safe place to
Yep.
learn and continuously,
Practice.
evolving. But on the other side, I think the custom KC, right, which we kind of KC for you, which we have,
Yep.
because a lot of times you want to use those hundreds of scenarios there, but you
Yep.
need maybe three or five of very specific, and that's how kind of works very well
Mhm.
for organizations and make it very, very impactful. So, agree.
Sure. No, absolutely. In fact, since technology leadership risk, we agreed those are the elements of business success. No, you can move on. You were right. You were actually moving at the right pace. Here are really the awareness factors. I would say it's a quick summary, a snapshot of where anyone who's poised to draft a vision for the organization or a strategy. This is how you can begin. And this may not change in the next 24 or 36 months as well. This may stay. Some elements may get added. I spoke about a general generational diversity. Sorry, I'm it's a tongue twister at times. So that generational diversity is a critical element. When you are as a CHRO or a CLO trying to provide an avenue and getting your people to become relevant even 5 years from now, if they have to have that job intact in your organization, how are you going to break that myth and get them ready to embrace this change? Somebody had popped up a question on the chat a while ago, Ankur, while you were talking, where they're talking about change management also is a part of the challenge. By the way, it's not just technology integration and change, but change management too. I completely 210% echo that sentiment. That's a very correct statement. In fact, why don't you just move ahead on the slides as well, Ankur? What I would like to show to our audience, and I'm keeping a close watch on the time that we have left, is for everyone who wants to begin the journey somewhere, or you have just begun, you're wanting to validate whether this is the right track I'm on. Here's a quick snapshot of some of the components of your journey or the transformation roadmap that you already are on. So if you already have the right vision and you know what outcomes you want to achieve out of that vision, and therefore is skilling, the only imperative, what are the ways to do it, that becomes your stepping stone. So that is ground zero, I would say, not even step one. That is even before you onboard yourself or embark on that journey, that should be the stepping stone. Then yes, now evaluate your talent pool and find out where and how much of a gap there exists. And trust me, you will find an answer to that question as to what the gap level is. The solution may not lie in house, and you may have to leverage the larger ecosystem, the external solutions providers, various other options that are available. See what your competitors are doing, simple as that. Do a competitor study as well. And then you need to benchmark the skills that you have identified, as a part of your prerogative. And then moving on, you'll have to ensure that the transformation is continuous. Therefore, the plan has to be co-created. Some thinking you will have, of course, some vision you will have, but how are you validating it? Is that going to be a vision that will hold relevance in 5 years? So you have to get those experts, the consultants, roped into this kind of a co-creation model. And then you talk about experimenting or exploring and testing something. Yeah, the way to do it is do a pilot. If you're not convinced that enterprise wide it'll be a success, absolutely, a dipstick, a pilot approach is the right way to do it. And then measurability, the tracking mechanism. Who will the accountability lie with? What tools do I have to my disposal? That should be the part of the narrative. And ultimately you're talking about how you get people to stay relevant, and there's a continuum there. And all of this has to mean that you have more hands than just in your organization. You may not have that capability, right? So today we have someone called a customer success manager or a program manager from professional services. Yeah, we may charge a bit for that service, but why do we do that? So that we take off some of the pain from the shoulders of the customers. We own that, we make it our solution, we drive that solution. And that is when transformation has to happen, and it sure will. We have classic case studies, but I don't think today time will permit, Ankur. And I would
No,
love for you to move to the other slide, but before that, if you can add your
right.
thoughts on this
No,
journey.
absolutely. And I think the beauty is that you have to do this very seamlessly, right?
Yeah.
It cannot be a patchwork of things which you try to do in between. It has to be
Mm-hmm.
very seamless-ish solution from the start till the end, right? Somebody is, even if you're, while most of the organization will have a vision, right? But
Mm-hmm.
how that vision has to get realized, and make it like a culture, because ultimately what you will do is you will create a learning culture and
Mm-hmm.
self-sufficient,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's where the ecosystems become and very important, and that experience, which is a personalized experience, becomes very important up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in fact, leveraging disruptions, and I think there we can actually get started with our whole AI acceleration as the theme, and how that's causing differentiation. And someone again has popped up a very interesting question. How can we ensure that the learning roadmaps remain agile and adaptable to changing business needs? One, I would love to thank the person. I'm sorry I can't see your name, but because you've asked a relevant question, you are actually trying your best to get us back on track on this conversation. Ankur, why don't you move ahead with the slide and I try to respond to that? So, see, a learning roadmap, meaning what stage of the learning roadmap are you already on? Have you just embarked? Like I said, is it still at a visionary phase? Are you still in that entrepreneurial, mindset? Are you still at an exploration phase? Or what phase of maturity are you in this model? Then once I think you have that appetite, you have done the thinking. Now begins where you're, aspiring to achieve some outcomes. There are some aspects that you're trying to create a baseline with situations on. So that is the experimentation phase. Now, if you're already there, the idea for you to then should be move up to the innovation phase, where here you could have a little bit more, coherent efforts. You can have a little bit more serious intent coming through from the learnings from exploration and experimentation phases that you would have already traversed. And then, here you have, a meteor output and an outcome, a tangible form that you're talking about. Even the way you, define those roadmaps will mean that you have those tangible milestones in those roadmaps. You will fail to do a good job if you're still, at a very early stage, but then yeah, you want to get to realization like in week 2 of that journey. Not going to happen. Okay,
Yeah,
it is a step by step, it is a progressive process. And once you have achieved that realization phase, somewhere, this is kind of an analogy that reminds me, back in school college days we had seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Ankur. So I'm quite reminded of that,
yeah,
in a fashion. So so realization is going to be extremely important, because now there's a strategy I have tested, tried, failed, and now some level of success I have got. Now, for these roadmaps to remain agile and these roadmaps to become adaptable, there has to be the level of preemption or anticipation that your leaders will have to do. When I said, from based on the World Economic Forum report, I made a comment earlier, Ankur, about how leaders need to be trained as
Yeah,
well. They may not need to know how to code, etc., but they need to know what to drive as a part of the transformation journey,
agree.
because the business context is undoubtedly changing. So therefore, that's going to have a crucial role to play.
No,
Yeah, why don't you kind of
Absolutely. And if you really think about it, if you are a business leader and you are maybe a sales head of a IT company,
hmm
right? And the customer says that now you have these Gen AI tools and they can code, right?
yeah
Which means your guy's productivity should be improved by 50%, for an example.
hmm
So either you
hmm
give me 50% more or you reduce the price, right?
agreed.
Unless you know exactly where,
Yeah,
how, what, you will not be able to even justify that argument which is your customer is making, right? And
absolutely,
this is so I
absolutely.
think it goes all across and touches everybody because it is fundamentally changing the way execution and the work happens. And to
hmm
that point, there was a question about, oh, which roles we can't predict, but
Yeah,
we
what
can
will get
say,
automated.
yeah, we can only
hmm
say that there are certain sort of, in talent acquisition there are certain sort of roles which has been kind of taken away, right?
hmm
You will see that when I say roles taken away, sometimes they are becoming more productive. So you need less people to do the same thing,
correct.
right? Think about
Yeah.
it from a curation perspective. Tons of people creating curated content, right? Or in personalized, those custom content that is
Yeah.
going away because now the video production can be done through AI, right? The
hmm
the writing can be done through AI. So when you really start thinking about, you need less and less people to do that job, and their
Yeah.
job will not be creating a content but writing that right prompt to the AI to
hmm
get that video out, right? Or create that
absolutely
content right? So, or the journey itself. So I
correct.
think those evolution will happen. So you still need to have your
Correct.
core skills, but then you
hmm
have to advance and upskill yourself on what else I require for that future role, which is happening. So I think
absolutely, absolutely.
across departments, and I'm sure HR. But good to see that HR numbers, that HR is adopting AI a lot more. So yeah,
Yeah.
I will let you continue, please.
No, I think the next slide is roundabout a summary, and then maybe we spend a couple of minutes on any more questions that may pop up. Here, clearly, what we are saying is, I have a slide for each one to show you pictorially or graphically what an assess phase of this entire, skill enterprise-wide skill transformation journey will look like. What an indexing means, what develop means, what performance means. In fact, instead of reading text, why don't you just, switch through the slides? Actually, I'll walk the whole team through this. So if you see now, when we say we need to, as a step one, somebody asked this question very early on in the conversation today. This should be the first step. Once we have identified the skilling imperative, the narrative, we know now there's a gap. Now I need to assess what is that definition of the gap. What level are my people at, with respect to a certain skill or a competence, and then therefore I know that there's a needle movement that is needed, which means this is a fact based approach to identifying or assessing your people's skill levels currently. Okay, and then the next one talks about now what am I doing next, after I have assessed. Now what is my priority? I may have various results of that assessment. Now how is my approach or strategy going to vary depending on so much of data I have gathered? So this will help me drive the decisions based on the trends that I'm seeing, and this actually, by the way, talks volumes about my organization culture too. And to one of the outcomes from the World Economic Forum report excerpts, not everything led to a technology skilling, by the way. It also meant the softer aspects. There was
Yeah.
resilience, there was leadership, there was technology usage vis-a-vis just technical knowledge. So that again is going to make it a more robust skilling narrative for you. And the third one is talking about develop. The next slide, if you see, this talks about, what are the different phases, even for leaders across different persona or different archetypes. You have different people's needs that need to get addressed. It doesn't mean that I'm doing an enterprise wide skilling and I'm doing an enterprise wide skilling just for my frontline staff. I will need to parallelly upskill, like Ankur pointed this out earlier. The leaders who will be driving this change have to also be skilled. They need to be coached, by the way, a little bit more. and that therefore needs practice, that therefore needs intervention. And then of course, there'll be a set of people who are technically sound, but from a persona perspective, they also need to look at how the job look different in a bit. And now look at the quick speedometer view. We were at a 70 at a proficient. Success will get defined by this ROI that I have generated. Now I have moved that needle to an advanced. And this is, again, I'm sounding like a broken record. It's not going to happen overnight. It could take 90 days, it could take 120 days, and organization culture and appetite wise, it may even take longer. So, at that juncture, can we just sum it up with the archetypes? That's the last slide I had for everyone, and we have a minute to go. And if you see, these are the different personas. So, where to begin? I think these should be parallel activities. This does not have to happen one after the other. So frontline end users, definitely they are the ones meeting the customers, talking to them, kind of doing the representation of the brand ambassadors of your brands. So therefore they definitely need to be on this charter. Then the leaders who will drive this entire narrative will have to also, like I said, on various aspects, get upskilled. And then, since technology will change, the landscape will change, we need to get our specialists and the developers also into the game very early on. At that note, Rankur, I'm pausing, requesting your insights for about a minute, and then this
No,
can
no,
remain.
I think coming back to this is so important that you have to really define, because it has to be very outcome driven, right?
Hmm.
It has to be very targeted, persona based skilling, right? And what kind of programs you are running. I think that is, and there are people like us who really help organizations in terms of doing everything, touching up their workforce. But I'll not touch that. But just to come back here, and I know this is not a readable slide, but you can see that in skills of Percipio, which is a very AI driven, and we are using AI for 10 years plus, right? In that way, in their early days. But you can look at, you have to look at building up an ecosystem which not only is multimodal on one side, right? But then the coverage of, from a technology perspective, because every company is a technology company, and you
Hmm.
have to start looking at from a digital dexterity perspective, leadership perspective, those professional skills and whatnot, and risk, right, which we kind of talked about. So those are the things which you have to really start looking at, and that's where you go the whole cycle, because it's a continuous cycle,
Yeah,
right? Because ultimately you start benchmarking, you start instructing, collaborating, applying, and then performing. And that is a complete cycle, because there is a new and new skills which are coming in, and then you have to still benchmark. And
correct.
it is, I think, Sujita, you did mention about it, that leaders has to benchmark. Let the leader has to take a Gen AI course themselves and understand, or a AI course, or even a leadership course, or
Yeah,
leadership benchmark, and try to see where they are, right?
correct.
So I think a lot of that self makes it pretty well. But yeah, that's where we will stop. But any other questions do you see coming in,
No,
Jerry? We
I think
can.
any others that pop up, yeah, either Jerry can let us know, or maybe we can respond to those offline.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ankur and Sucheta. I think it was a fascinating conversation. I think, like we mentioned, it just went in a flow. We didn't even know that it was 1 hour over. But thank you so much, especially for to both of you. I know you've architected the session, but also all the sessions throughout this week. We've had Ankur and Sucheta's inputs on curating this, and I want to thank you for your expertise that you share. I know we are over time, but I wanted to just double click on one announcement Ankur made around the dipstick study. So if you've registered for this, you will get access to this report. It's on Gen AI and the emerging workforce. This is some dipstick data that we got from Indian organizations, about 150 of them, and we'll share a copy with you early next week. And that'll be good for us to consolidate some of these learnings that you have, and we'll also plug in some of the information. I know every slide was so packed with frameworks and insights. So if you didn't have a chance to look at them, we'll try to curate some of this into the report as well. And that'll be great. So thank you to our audience as well for staying engaged and with us all through this time. With
Absolutely.
that, we'll take a pause here. Thank you so much and have
Yeah.
a great
No,
day
thank
ahead.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Jerry.
Have a great
Thank you,
day.
Shweta. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.